Finance and Facility Committee met on March 2nd. I filled in for Mr. Gilfillan as he was not available. We talked about all the feedback from the various public sessions that have been held over the last 6-8 weeks rather, and then covered the recent feedback from the meeting from last Saturday. Went back over the pros and cons and the rationale, and we have taken into a bunch of things into consideration. And Dr. Buscuso, would you mind bringing up it might be the second to last slide, the cost per pupil? And before we go with the recommendation from the Finance Committee to the full board to get their say on the finance, the guiding principle, I've been in the district 15 years. The guiding principle has always been maximum results, minimal tax impact. So in this instance, we're spending $12,000, almost $13,000 per pupil. So in order to achieve the results on the right, we have spent the least amount as possible without compromising performance. And a few people have written articles and even said in some of the public sessions, why don't you be more like Milburn? Why can't you be more like Summit? And if we were to be more like Milburn, with a difference of, just on the slide, about $1,600 in cost per pupil, that would give us an increase of about $6.8 million to our operating budget. And let's just say it was just 1,000. Let's just go with a round number of 1,000. With 4,100 students in the district, 4,136 students in the district, that's a $4 million operating bump. So even if we just increased our cost per pupil, because some people argue you don't always want to be the cheapest, because then what are you giving up on the performance side? But this has been a balancing act, and not one that started today or yesterday. It's one that started years and decades ago to be efficient and yet get as much maximum performance on the right-hand side for our students and the most value for our taxpayers. Some would also say, well, our property values are impacted by the school district. And one gentleman, I think on Saturday, said, well, is it the school system? Is it the train line, direct to Midtown? Well, some of these other schools are on the train line as well, spending more per pupil and not necessarily seeing the same test results or success rates and enrollment rates in post-secondary going beyond. So the guiding principle has always been maximum results, minimal cost at taxpayers, hopefully benefiting the most number of students, the most number of taxpayers, property tax, making Chatham a desirable place to live, to work, to raise children, to retire, to move here at retirement in some instances. So again, when we compare towns to towns, and some of these towns have significantly higher taxes than Chatham, again, even a $1,000 bump in a cost per pupil would be an extra $4 million to our operating budget, which would be a permanent impact to the tax. That's not the case here. We always stay as low as we possibly can while maintaining performance. Now, with that all being said, the guidance, Mike, are you able to switch to the next slide? With that guiding principle in mind, I just wanted to bring up, in 2005, the referendum yielded close to a little over $26 million. So in order to take every opportunity of the current finances and the current state relief and the interest rates that are currently being offered, the $26 million in 2005 cost the borough $71 for $100,000 of assessed value, and the township $57. Conversely, the 2015 referendum that we're considering in April, for the entire package of just under $25 million, the 24.8. So for the same general dollar amount, it's only $25 in the borough and $25 in the township. Again, taking advantage of every opportunity, the lower interest rates, the refunds and the state debt service, or not the debt service, but the refunds that we get for some of these projects that will be financed through the referendum. If you finance certain things through operating budget, we do not qualify. And I think it's about $2.9 million, is that true? $2.9 million of state assistance that we're getting, packaging it this way. So between the low interest rates and the state aid, the net figure to the borough is $25 per 100,000 and $25 to the township per 100,000 for this current referendum. And I just wanted to make that comparison to the 2005 referendum, which passed for $26 million. Now again, with that all being said, the Finance Committee met, took everything into consideration, and to get the maximum value out of all of our dollars, and achieve the same high results, we've decided to keep this as one question, put the question out there for these projects for the $24.8 million in the April vote. So we've taken everything into consideration, and this is a comprehensive package to benefit the most number of students, the most number of residents, and that's the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Now, everybody on the board was not present, so I'm going to ask those that wish to speak and those that weren't there. Several of us were there, so they may be a little bit more brief, but I'm going to go to my left with Mr. Belding as our elder statesman, the longest member of our board currently here. To give Lada a break, because usually I pick on Lada to go first, so I'm going to go to my left down to Lada, and then Mr. Nonamaker, I'm going to swing back to you, and then end up right here with Mr. Gilfillan. So again, the recommendation of the Finance Committee from our previous meetings to go with one question for the full project. Mr. Belding?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. So I'd like to just comment on some of the feedback that we got in the public sessions, and these are just general observations. Now, my background is in management and economics and finance. I have spent a fair amount of time connected with schools, and I've worked on budgets and referendums in between Milburn and Chatham. So I'm board in Milburn twice. So anyway, my first comment has to do with inflation. Nobody has really mentioned inflation except the fact that why have my taxes gone up and up and up. Chatham schools are affected by inflation just like the rest of us. Several folks have mentioned how their taxes have increased. Probably the single biggest factor in why your taxes have gone up over any period of time, frankly, has been inflation. If you look on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, which is, you can Google CPI inflation calculator, you'll find that the impact of inflation has been to increase overall prices nearly double since 1990. You may find this surprising. This means that groceries, doctor bills, housing, transportation, on average, have nearly doubled. School costs are affected by inflation also. We have to buy our supplies, we have to pay for medical insurance for our staff. We have to do all the same things that you do when you run a household, except we live in a much more complex environment in some respects. Anyway, let's not single out the schools as though they were responsible for a general economic trend or divert from a realistic assessment of what is being proposed. At the same time, we have experienced a 91% increase in enrollment. We had 2,169 students in 1990. We now have 4,138. We're budgeting for 4,200 for next year. Imagine if your family had nearly doubled in size. How would that have increased your expenses? Keep in mind that during that time, you also had to accommodate numerous new and expensive regulations, multiple upgrades in technology platforms, and the maintenance of aging facilities. Of course, our costs have gone up, but they haven't gone up anywhere as close to what they would have if it was a linear progression. Inflation 2 times, enrollment 2 times. It could have been 4 times. I don't think our costs have gone up 4 times since 1990. Despite the above, as numerous people have pointed out, Chatham has come out on top in performance and near the bottom in cost per student. The Board of Ed and the administration have done a yeoman's job of delivering great product at a reasonable price. We've held costs down and delivered, together with the consistent support of the community. Tremendous value. This is reflected in our consistently high property values and the overall quality of our community and the people in it, something we all benefit from. I think most of my fellow board members feel similarly that the proposed referendum is the most efficient way to meet numerous necessary needs, not wants. And the time is right to do this. Interest rates will never be lower than they are right now. To delay will add needless expense to the community. There is no better alternative. Looking within the overall project list, the new auditorium is the best solution to meet the needs of our performing arts, but also for freeing up much needed space for additional classrooms, for STEM, and other purposes. Any other solution, expanding on the existing middle school structure, up or out, would require taking at least part of an intensely used facility offline with major program disruption. or impinging on other space, such as athletic fields, which are in short supply and also intensely used. A new auditorium in a location we already own, unencumbered, the construction of which will not disrupt existing programs, and which can meet the needs of the community, is the best choice. Several folks commented on why theaters in New York City have not upgraded. If they can live with old, why can't we? After all, it's the people, not the space, that matters. We don't challenge that later thought. But, well, I'm not an expert on the theater business, but let's look at the basic business proposition. Theaters in New York City are profit-making enterprises. To upgrade their facilities would involve, particularly in New York, extraordinary expense and loss of revenue during renovation, in a business that is normally under intense pressure to control expense and risk. It would also involve making the theaters ADA compliant, just like we're having to face with our auditoriums, which would in all likelihood reduce their seating capacity and thus further constrain revenues and profits. These facilities are also in most cases completely space constrained. In Chatham, we have some flexibility, tangible needs and vital programs, and a great opportunity that will not last. We should take advantage of it. We are at the right price point, and even after the referendum, we will still be well below the price per student of our nearest qualitative rivals. The referendum we're proposing is the best solution for the community. The Board of Ed and the administration have not suddenly become spendthrift. We have been, and I'm confident will continue to be diligent watchdogs of the public interest. This is what you elected us to do. Our track record suggests that we have earned your trust. There are times when the right thing to do is spend money and invest in the community and its future. We think this is one of those times. We hope to have your support.
We don't have ours. We don't have mine.
Thank you, Mr. Belding. Moving down to Mr. Franz.
I don't have anything prepared like the senior statesman, Mr. Belding, but it doesn't mean I haven't thought any less about this since it came up. I've certainly spoken and encouraged comments from friends, neighbors, whether at the train station, in the neighborhood, at a sporting event, at King's, at Stop and Shop, wherever I may be. Comment, opinion is what this is all about. And I think everyone, for better or worse, needs to look at this from every different angle before they make their own decision. And at the end of the day, it is everyone's own decision. I was elected as an official, which I still find funny at times to this day. But part of that election was people entrusting me to make good decisions, use fair judgment, of which I've taken very seriously when it comes to this. I could, and I still can't hit a curveball. I can't sing. I was a less than dedicated student. But I think at the end of the day, we have to do what's best for the children and the students. And I think all things considered and all things up for the vote, of which you all will be able to make your own decision. It's not on us. I think those all make for a very strong argument for them all to be included, in that they represent the whole student body. And for that reason, I'm on board with one question.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Clark?
I'm the newest board member on here, and I've sat in many meetings about this. Prior to me sitting here, I spent many meetings sitting up there. And the issues that have come before the board, these are not new issues. These have come forth with capital improvements needs. What I have found is that this board we've gone over this so many times. We as a board have talked through issues that we've listened to you, we've gone back, we've talked, and, you know, I personally have, just like Mr. Franz, I've talked to many, many people, whether it's in my children's school, whether it's in my neighborhood, but it feels like everywhere I go, I'm talking about this, and I too feel that we have to keep this in one question. I feel that it has to be one question because just like the base budget, I look at it that, you know, I may not have children, or not every child benefits from every single thing in the budget, but we still put it all together because we're serving the whole community of learners in our schools. And when we look at this referendum, by breaking it apart, I feel like it would pit one program against another, or, you know, in my sentiment, it would create a bad vibe that would not be conducive to what we set out. I think it should stay as one question. I think everybody's entitled to their opinion. I encourage people to go vote and express their opinion at the polls. We've extended the hours at the polls to allow more people to have that opportunity. Hopefully we will have a higher turnout and that people will have the chance to express their desires and hopefully, you know, make their own informed decision. So I support it as staying my decision, and I appreciate the endless hours the Finance and Facilities Committee has put toward this referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy?
I'd like to, first of all, thank the public for coming out and expressing their opinion. I found that very helpful. I think that that being said, I think that all the projects are equally important, and I think that the referendum positions us to make the improvements that the district needs in the most cost-effective manner, and therefore I support the referendum as it's being presented as one question.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. I'm going to flip to the other side. Mr. Nonmaker?
Yes, I too would like to thank the public. One of the things that occurred during the public sessions was people would come to the microphone and they would say, I want to thank you for the job that you do. Not to me, to all of us. And the respect that people had for us and how we work, how we volunteer our time. And more than any other decision that I had to participate in, no matter what I did, no matter how I cast a vote, there was going to be a certain portion of the population that was going to be disappointed. So when I say to you, I support the Finance Committee's decision to leave it as one question, I don't want you to think that that was an easy thing. It required a lot of work. It required a lot of sleepless nights. It required a lot of tugging and pulling and spending time listening to the public. When I consider everything that I know about the referendum and how it's going to enrich Chatham, and I look at the alternatives, I feel that the only way that I could act in the best interest of Chatham, and I've gone through all of them, all the alternatives. There was an alternative to break it down into 3, which I thought was a fantastic idea. Then a large percentage of the population wanted each question to stand on its own. And I looked at that, and I considered that, and I talked to other people, and I listened to my colleagues. And after all the hard work, after all the listening, after all the pushing and tugging and sleepless nights, I have decided to endorse and to support the Finance Committee's decision to put this as one question. And I thank you for your input, and I hope for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Nonmaker. Ms. Curley?
I just brought up something since I've been part of this for a long time. We have spent many days and hours looking into the best solution to address the growth in enrollment and curriculum. We have not heard one idea that we did not explore. Originally, I was a no on the new building, and I was a yes on multiple questions. And believe me, I fought very hard with my committee members, and I think as a result, it was many, many hours and many days, but I think because of those discussions, we really batted this out, and we went through things like unbelievable. And I'm a finance person by background, 30 years on Wall Street, and I'm big on the numbers. And what it comes down to, is that we have right now 997 students in CMS that are sharing one STEM classroom. Okay, we have fought really hard to expand the curriculum I think that, Karen Chase and the administration have done a tremendous job in offering the new curriculum that we have, the whole STEM program. And we now have this great program, and we have to turn kids away who are trying to register to get into these classes. These are phenomenal classes, great opportunities for our students, opening their minds and brains to new opportunities. And to me, my big turning point is we don't have the classrooms. So now, we don't have the classrooms, we can fit a certain amount of kids into these classes, but unless we do this extension, well, we can't extend it to CMS. The new STEM classrooms are going to be built where the current auditorium is. So I support the one question, because to me, it's the only way that we can, like I said, we've gone through this and we've proved this, through all the work that we've done, that to really extend, to add the classrooms, especially like for CMS, we have to use the existing space that we have at the auditorium, and we have to add a new building. So I support the one question.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Rounding out with our illustrious leader of the Finance Committee, Mr. Gilfeller.
We went into this whole process 3+ years ago, the absolute focus of what we were looking at was addressing the massive inadequacies of our arts facilities. We looked at all different kinds of funding, off-balance sheet funding, whatever you want to call it, to try to address the needs of the arts. We had done that due to the fact that we had felt over the years prior to that we had addressed a number of the needs in terms of the athletic facilities, as well as classrooms through past referendums, as well as working within the operating budget to add significant amount of classrooms at the high school to deal with the increased enrollment. We didn't have, basically, at that point, any intent on doing anything outside of the arts. We didn't move into this and looking at Cougar Field or looking at additional classroom spaces. From a perspective of a single vote, and when people asked us to strip them out and do all of the basically 3 verticals, I couldn't get myself to do that for one reason, because in my heart I couldn't have gone into this with the absolute intent of addressing the needs for the arts and coming out with additional classrooms or additional athletic facilities only, and not being a part, not having the arts addressed. I just couldn't do that. At that point, we had always had, and you guys will have to know that we had pushed back the administration for years and years and years in terms of looking at a referendum. When we went forward with that and we gave the okay to even entertain the option of a referendum, we did have a dollar figure in our head that we would be comfortable with in terms of asking for the public to reach into their pockets. And we've asked, and as we've always said, we're going to have 2 budgets going forward. One, which is to keep the lights on, and then 2, ask the public to support second questions for additional options and optionality or programs within the district. So when the dollar figures came back, at that point, with what we had felt was, or I had felt was fair in terms of asking of the public versus what we have seen through second questions over the last 2 years and other years, is that I decided, should we look at addressing all of the needs that are currently deemed inadequate or areas of need within the district. So with this referendum and the pending ESIP program, we're going to be able to address a massive amount of the needs that we have here from a facility perspective within the district at a dollar figure that I feel is not asking too much. Now, if you look at it from perspective, you say, well, what does that mean? If you look at what we're asking for this year, when you combine the 1.77% and the referendum, we are not asking for, in all honesty, much more than we asked for last year, and that vote passed 72-28. So, with the fact that I believe from a financial perspective, from a perspective of being in a position to upgrade all of the needs within the district through numerous options here. I do believe a single question is the right way to go. I think it's been done in a very fiscally responsible way. I can guarantee you that while I will not say next year will be a 1.77%, I guarantee you we will keep that figure down as low as possible. I do believe from a perspective that if this referendum passes, combined with the ESIP program, is that we will focus on maintaining a extremely low operating budget moving forward as we digest this whole process. However, in the end, I don't think we are being fiscally irresponsible in any way. So with that, I am throwing my support behind the single question and the referendum as a whole.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gilfillan. Assuming there's no additional questions on the Finance Committee report,